Hey, Shalom, Yasharala, peace be unto the nation of Israel, modern-day so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, despicable Israelites, being Israelite foreigners, scattered across the four corners of the earth, including within America, Babylon the Great, the main place for captivity. We are the Most High, Yahweh's chosen people of the nation of Israel. So without further ado, as always, in the Lashon Kodash, being the Holy Tongue, all right, is in the Paleo Hebrew, being the ancient Hebrew. We give all praises, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom was the God of the living, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Baruch. Which is our praise to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, in the name of his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, who is our strength and our Redeemer and our light and our salvation. In the same tongue, I'm utter Mashana Kabodim Laha Sequanium, Shal, Galawarakah, many double honors to the apostles and elder bishops, great millstone, and Shalom, honor salutation to Bayash Dawadah, the 144,000 elect governing body of the house of David, along with the rest of the one-third elect men, women, and children of Israel. All right. It's fellow servant Malak Rayav back at it again with the second installment of, a lesson I did a few days ago entitled "Israelite Men Will Have Concubines in the Kingdom of Heaven." Prophetic proof. All right, due to prophetic proof. All right. So this is the second installment of that lesson, which in the second installment of this lesson, I'm going to go ahead and emphasize on the fact that the concubines are mentioned in scriptures because they were always permissible for Israelite men to deal with, as long as those concubines, which are secondary wives, considered as secondary wives or paramours, didn't have husbands. Otherwise, it would be adultery. But nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and further focus on that aspect of this lesson in terms of concubines always being permissible and why they would be permissible in the kingdom of heaven. And because this is also how we're going to bear our children. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to play a few seconds of a clip that I had initially played of Bishop Nate. It's like Bishop Nate slandering the men of Great Millstone and the men that follow the likewise doctrine of prophesying about concubines, okay, and how supposedly a wicked thing, because he was implying that the men that prophesy about concubines being in the kingdom of heaven, are essentially sexual deviants, okay, and let this be another warning, to you slanderers, because there's another individual who has been slandering us for years, all right, on for supposedly being sexual deviants, for the fact that we teach about the concubines because it's written. But he just got caught up. He just got exposed for being for a similar offense. Okay. So, but nonetheless, I'm gonna go ahead and play this clip, a few seconds of this clip by Bishop Nate slandering the true men of the Lord. For teaching about the concubines, because this character here, the character I was referencing, just got exposed by the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemir Shai for slandering us on the same thing. And this is why judgment has been brought upon this individual. Okay. But I'm gonna focus on this character here on the screen, Bishop Nate, and his slander on the true men of the Lord, mainly of Great Millstone, prophesied about concubines being in the kingdom of heaven. All right.
Revelation 13:10.
Revelation chapter 13, verse 10.
Now this is Jesus Christ speaking. Watch what he says.
He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
Now, all that we just read, that's Christ speaking. He's going to make sure that's enforced. But what some of these Israelite leaders are doing is saying, we're not going to teach that. So you have all other races, Arabs, white folks who are oppressed, are sitting there amongst them. Then you got groups that teach about concubines. Yeah. Oh, we're going to have sex with white women. Yeah. Give me that Jeremiah 30:16. I'm like, so you're going to have in the kingdom, you having sex with white women and kick the black woman to the curb. Are you kidding me? Read that.
Jeremiah.
Okay, we don't teach that. Okay, as I spoke about in the first installment of this lesson, in response to that slander, is that the apostles, on down, have been recently advocating and have been for quite some time that we don't need Eve, as in the so-called black woman, okay? The lapdog of Esau, Edom. As Elder Apostle Tahar said some years ago, the so-called black woman is a devil. So for the simple fact that she is the main joint heir to Esau, Edom's rulership in his wicked, satanic, effeminate, um, Queen of Heaven, Semiramis worshiping empire known as America, Babylon the Great. That's why we get on a nigga woman so much, man. Okay, because of that pact that she made with the old ancient serpent called the devil. Okay, pursuing Genesis, the 3rd chapter. All right, because her wickedness, her wicked spirit is in tune with the wicked spirit of Esau, Edom. This is why Esau, Edom set up the so-called black woman in slavery as a so-called madam. Okay, to keep watch over the lower the other slaves. Okay, and on top of that, Esau had his way with that woman, as I brought out in the first installment in Lamentations. I believe it's Lamentations 5:11. Another major element of I may or may not have brought it out in the first installment, but Lamentations 5:11, it speaks about how they will ravish the women of Zion, roughly paraphrasing. All right, so this is this is further why the so-called black woman's mind is so psychologically damaged towards her men by design, by the slave master. Okay, as a part of the Edomite slave master Willie Lynch's tactics of war against our people by pitting our women against us. And this is all this and the whole and this is all just further results of the curses. Deuteronomy 28 and what's that 56. How the tender woman will no longer be delicate towards her men and her children, roughly paraphrasing. So this is why we get on a nigga woman so much, and this is why we advocate to her that she's not needed in terms of bearing children. Okay, which further confirms that we will be bearing children through these concubines, these surrogate mothers of the heathen nations, which is completely permissible according to the confinement of the marriage laws and the laws of military service, which I'm going to go and get into in the second installment of this lesson, which I'm going to make relatively quick because I'm about to head out in a moment. But what Nate tried to do, Bishop Nate tried to do, is use Revelation 13 and 16 and Jeremiah 30 and 16 and going into the prophecy of the judgment of the heathen to justify his claim, and that in the false accusation that us preaching about the concubines being in the kingdom of heaven is us advocating love or showcasing love towards our oppressor, which he's a hypocrite for that accusation, for the fact that he calls on the top idol of our top oppressor, which is Jesus Christ. For the fact that the first slave ship was known as Jesus of Lubeck, aka Great Ship Jesus, but yet he continues to call on the name of Jesus Christ and teach his congregation and followers to call that same pagan name. Okay, that is of a composition of many pagan gods, such as Serapis Christus and so forth. Okay, and this comes from the same man that once taught the true name of the Lord. Okay, and that lesson through the Spirit was an hour and 44 minutes through the Spirit, highly spiritual. And I learned the name from this man, but now he's completely going off by purposely teaching against the foundation of the word, which is the name of the Lord, by neglecting to teach the name of the Lord. Now he's continuing to, out of rebellion, which is a sin of witchcraft, he's continuing to rebel against the true men of the Lord, out of spite, in other unclean spirits. Okay, because he's not sincerely contending with our teachings of the concubines, as if it's not written in the scriptures. He's contending with our teachings of the concubines because he has a bone. he has contention with El Apostle Tahar. This is what this is all about. So that you wayward camps can continue to be destroyed, and before you get destroyed, all right, for those who don't repent, you're going to be exposed like this guy. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab this quick precept. I'm gonna go ahead and grab this quick precept. I'm gonna start off in Genesis 35 and 22, going into the fact that our forefather Jacob and our other forefathers had concubines, and it was never wicked. All right. This is Genesis 35 and 22. And it says, and it came to pass when Israel dwelt in that land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. And Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. Okay. So Reuben went off by committing adultery with his father Jacob's concubine. Okay, but he didn't go off by laying with a concubine. He went off by laying with his father's concubine, which is adultery. So this is verse 23. Says the sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Zebulun. All right. And verse 24 says the sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. Okay. All right. Now, here's a point. Genesis 25 and 25, 35 and 25, Salaki. It says, and the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. So our forefather Jacob had Dan, which the tribe of Dan got amalgamated amongst the tribes, and is really no longer a tribe. But his Jacob's forefather Jacob's concubine had Bilhah had conceived Dan and Naphtali. Okay, now let me see something real quick. I'm going to look her name up in the Hebrew. Let me see here. Let me go ahead and change this back to the KJV. All right, so let me see. All right, Bilhah. I believe it's Balaha. I believe it's Balaha or Bala. Okay, and this was this was Jacob's concubine. This was one of his concubines. So this is Genesis 35 and 26. And it says, and the sons of Zilpah, another concubine, and the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid. What is what is another word for handmaid? All right, a slave woman. Okay, a slave woman. Okay, or a concubine. Okay, a surrogate mother or secondary wife, otherwise known as a paramour. It says, and the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, which was our forefather Jacob's other concubine. Okay, says, and the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Padanaram. So our forefather Jacob had, had Gad and Asher conceived through his concubine Zilpah, which was his wife Leah's handmaid. Because this was a common practice. Okay, integrated within the marriage laws for a daughter of Zion, okay, who was a wife of an Israelite man, to have a handmaid and give her handmaid over to her Israelite husband to bear children. And oftentimes this would transpire because the Israelite woman was not able to conceive children because of her elderly age for the most part. So this is why concubines is not a wicked thing, because it was a common practice, once again, integrated within the marriage laws. Okay, and the laws of military service, which I'm gonna get into a little later. But Zilpah, let's look her up now. Zilpah, Genesis 35 and 26. Salakia. All right, let's get Genesis 35 and 26. All right, let's look up Zilpah, age 2153, which is her name is Zalapah. All right, Zalapah was our forefather Jacob's other concubine, aka handmaid. And I broke down that word handmaid in Isaiah 14 and 2, which is a future prophecy of the Israelite men having handmaids of the heathen nations in the kingdom of heaven, and how a handmaid is a synonym for a concubine, okay, otherwise known as a secondary wife, or surrogate mothers, and surrogate mother, as I brought out here in this information, okay, on BibleStudyTools.com, or the word concubine. So I'll read this again. So concubine is a female slave who functioned as a secondary wife. Okay, not a sex slave. Okay, which is wickedness, because you nigger women became sex slaves to Esau Edom, man. When he was doing all manners of wickedness to you, man, including taking you, seizing you, raping you right in front of us. Okay, and during chattel slavery, and that's why his predictive programming production, known as 12 Years a Slave, showcased that. Okay, where he took that Eve that was like one of the hardest working slaves, and he had his way with her, man, and made her into a sex slave where he was abusing her. That's Esau shit. That's what Esau's into. Yasharallah was never into that. You see, that's a part of the slander of you wolves in sheep's clothing of the circumcision of Yasharallah of Israel regarding the wicked leadership of you wayward camps that further uses that vibration to rely on sensationalism to trigger the emotions of these weak, spineless men in the circumcision that are beta male, Queen of Heaven, Semiramis worshippers, and you wicked daughters of Zion, okay, who are feminists and whatnot, okay, to continue to keep you appeased so you can continue to pay your tithes, just like the Baptist Church. See that? But but the true men of the Lord are not going to spare any feelings. It says in Isaiah 58:1, it says, "Cry aloud and spare not." So we're gonna preach the completely, fully unadulterated and unfiltered truth, man, as it is written. If you don't like it, you don't like then you don't like you have a problem with Yahweh by Shem Shai and his sound doctrine. But as it says here, concubine, female slave, not sex slave, female, because sex is just a part of the process of having a wife, man. It's not the end all be all of a marriage. A marriage is a serious thing, okay? Because a marriage, you know what I'm saying, is takes a lot of responsibility on behalf of both parties, mainly the husband, to uh, to conduct himself in a masculine and righteous manner, a righteous and masculine manner before his wives and concubines, his secondary wives, okay, to be in order and to keep them in order and to keep the children that he bears through those women, his wives, in order. So a marriage is not a child plaything. Okay, just establish that. So it says concubine, female slave who function as a secondary wife and surrogate mother. It says concubines are mentioned primarily in early Israelite history during patriarchal times. Okay, of a righteous patriarchy when righteous men specifically, were ruling at one time. So, to the curses, further factored in, and women became women overpassed us, pursuant to Jeremiah 31:22. But it says concubines are mentioned primarily in early Israelite history during patriarchal times, the period of the judges in the early monarchy, although some later kings also had concubines. And it provides examples here, including this account, Genesis 35, that I'm bringing out about our forefather Jacob having concubines, along with other examples, man. So it says the practice of taking concubines as a wife was used to provide a male heir for a barren wife, Israelite wife that couldn't have a child, mainly because of elderly age, as I mentioned, man. I brought this out in the first installment. I just wanted to further revisit it for the sake of edification and exhortation. Okay, for those who may not have watched the first part, which I highly recommend you watch it, so you can understand what's going on in the second installment that I'm currently going into. But that was pretty much the point. Let me get back to Genesis 35:26. It says, "And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher, these are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him, and Pada Naram." So I'm going to get this word here real quick for a concubine, just to further add on to the edification. Right, I'm going to focus on a particular word, all right, in conjunction with the word concubine. So it's going to get it here in Judges 8:31, going to the account of our forefather Gideon having concubines. Hence why he was further able to bear 70 children. Because it takes 8 months for a woman to conceive children. So that would defeat the purpose of the Lord Yahweh by Shemashah telling his Israelite sons to be fruitful, multiply. Because the fruit of a man is his sperm, and to produce children through his fruit, his sperm, okay, further magnify the church, the nation of the Lord, Yahweh by Shemashai, the chosen holy nation of the Lord, to do the act of sex on behalf of marriage. Okay. All right. Which is why a lot of children were born, including through our concubines. All right. So how can we be fruitful, multiply through one woman, man? You Jakes gotta grow the hell up, man, and abandon that Western mindset. Because you Jakes that get emotionally triggered off the whole concubine thing, and especially the marriage of a maiden, okay, which is constituted by the flower for age, typically around 11 to 12 years old, that get caught up in that emotionally is because you never unconformed your mind from this Western society that frowns upon that aspect of marriage, okay, which includes, okay, young marriageable maidens, okay, that reaches a flower of the age of puberty through puberty, being constituted as women to be permitted to take as wives and concubines. I'm gonna get into that in the account of our forefather Moses later on in the lesson. So, but anyway, here's the word for concubine. I'm gonna get it in the blue letter. All right, in Judges 8:31. All right, all right. So the entry there is H6370 for concubine. All right, and the Hebrew word is payalagash. All right, payalagash. All right, for concubine. So the Hebrew word payalagash for concubine is, and it says concubine paramour. Okay, we'll get into that word in a second. It says concubine. All right, it's already been broken down what concubine is in this information here. All right, on BibleStudyTools.com for concubine. So let's get this word paramour, which is a synonym for concubine. All right. Paramour, a lover, especially the illicit partner of a married person. Right, and that's actually Esau's, warped or uh, um, definition of that word. Let me see. Yeah, so it says true meaning of paramour says since paramour meant through love, says it implies a relationship based solely on love, or affection, often physical love. So a paramour is a lover. That's what a concubine is, a secondary wife, a lover of another nation. It says rather than on social custom or ceremony. You see that? Because this is why going with that account I brought out in the first installment about how what's the name, Shechem. With Shechem the Hamite that great our sister Dinah, okay, wanted to, and who wanted to take her hand in marriage, and get it in further complete the process of marriage by intermingling the families of his particular Hamite family with our family, which the process of that was a part of our customs of marriage. Okay, going into those phases, which are about 4 phases, where typically a young female, okay, before she reached a flower of age, was betrothed, as in promised, to a young Israelite male, now becoming Israelite men. And when they became of age, then they would have sex, which would consummate the marriage. But before they would consummate the marriage through sex, they would intermingle. They would intermingle through their families on both parties, okay, to extend the family. And then the third phase was they would have sex, consummate the marriage. Then the final phase was they would have a feast to celebrate that marriage. But that was a part of the ancient customs, okay, of that of the marriage laws, okay, only pertaining to Israel. They never pertain to the heathen nations. That's why I said relationship based off of the definition of paramour. So relationship based solely on love, often physical love, rather than on social custom or ceremony. So meaning what? A paramour is considered a lover outside of the tradition of outside of the traditional custom of a marriage. Okay, ultimately originating back to the process of the marriage laws that only pertain to the Israelites, man. This is why paramour is a synonym for concubine of a secondary wife. Okay, why secondary wife? Because that secondary wife was of a heathen nation that was not to be honored within that luxury of partaking into the marriage the marriage laws, the full process of the marriage laws, where the families of both parties would intermingle. We were not because we were not to intermingle with the heathen. That's why Leviticus 20 and 26, the Heavenly Father Yahweh said that He was to sever us from these nations, these heathen nations. Why? Because the nation of Israel is holy. Holy meaning separate. Okay, if you don't understand that, that's not good. That's a red flag, man. You might most likely not be elect. So to teach that concubines is wicked because you're teaching against the scriptures, man. Yes, that's pretty much what that is. Anyway, so this is back in So let's get back to Genesis. And that's pretty much. I'll read that once more. Genesis 35 and 26 before I move on. Genesis 35 and 26. All right. And it reads, and the sons of Zalapah in the Hebrew, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher, these are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Padanaram. See that? So there's further proof that our forefathers not only dealt with concubines, okay, aka secondary wives and surrogate mothers to their children, okay. They to finish the second part of my thought, they also bear children with these concubines, which was always permissible according to the confinement of the marriage laws. Okay, so we're going to move on from that. Get this account in Genesis 16 of Abram and his concubine Hagar bearing him his son Ishmael, the father of the so-called Arabs. So let's get that in Genesis 16. All right, Genesis 16, and then read all the way down to verse. You know what? I think what I'm gonna do. Let me see. Might get this in the NLT. Yeah, I'm tempted to get this in the NLT, but you know what? I'll continue on here. Genesis 16 and 1. All right. As soon as it pulls up. Genesis 16:1 says, "Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children." See, it mentioned that in this information here. Okay, that's why that is. And the practice of taking concubines as wives was used to provide a male heir for barren wives. What does it mean to be barren? To not be able to bear children, man. So it says in Genesis 16:1, now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian whose name was Hagar. Because case in point, the Lord Yahweh told us to be fruitful, multiply. To extend to further extend the legacy of that Israelite man. Okay, to produce an heirship. Of his name. Okay. So if a man has one Israelite wife, let's say a man, let's say a man has a one Israelite wife, and that one wife can't bear children, most likely because she's elderly, whatever the case may be. And let's say she has a concubine in modern day times, or she has a friend, a female. She knows a friend that's a female, that she gives to her husband for the sake of bearing children. Is she going off? Of course not. But according to Bishop Nate's logic, he would bash that woman and that man for allowing it when that process is not wicked. Because that would make Abram wicked. Abraham, that is, whose name was changed to Abraham from Abram, which because Abraham was not wicked for doing this, man. That's why the scripture says, "Search the scriptures, man." So in Sirach 11:7, which lines with the Sirach 11:7, where it says, "Blame not before thou understand," or something along those lines. I mean, what you got to search the scriptures before you come to a conclusion, man. Not just making a conclusion based off of a false accusation predicated off of your vain emotions, like a woman, man. Genesis 16:1 says, "Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, a Hamite, from Altazarium, Egypt, says, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold, now the Lord Yahweh by Shemashai hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in into my maid. And I'm going to have to get this in NLT, Salakia. It says, go in into my maid. Go into her, meaning what? Penetrate her. Okay? It says, it may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian. Matter of fact, Salakia, man. Let me get this real quick. You know what? Salakia. For you simpleton out there, I'm going to have to finish this in NLT. All right? Let me see. Bruh. Genesis 16:2 in the NLT says, so Sarai said to Abram, the Lord Yahweh by Shemashai has prevented me from having children. Go and sleep with my servant. You don't get no clearer than that. Perhaps I can have children through her. And Abram agreed with Sarai's proposal. Let's read the rest of this in NLT. It says in verse 3 in the NLT. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, and gave her to Abram as a wife. This happened 10 years after Abram had settled in the land of Canaan. So Abram has sexual relations with Hagar. It's another thing, too, that further confirms that we can have multiple wives, because this a man that has multiple wives is not guilty of adultery. Adultery is when a married woman, has sexual relations with another man. That's adultery. A woman that shares her husband with other women is not adultery, man. So you Jakes need to grow the hell up, man. You abandon that Western mentality or get destroyed. It says Genesis 16:4 in NLT. So Abram had sexual relations with Hagar when she became pregnant. But when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress, Sarai, with contempt. So Sarai got envious, because she looked at Hagar. It reminded her that she was barren and couldn't bear her husband Abram's children. Because back then, all right, in the ancient world, it was a shameful thing for a woman to not be able to conceive a child for her husband. Verse 5 in the NLT says, then Sarai said to Abram, this is all your fault. I put my servant into your arms, but now that she's pregnant, she treats me with contempt. The Lord Yahweh by Shemashai will show who's wrong, you or me. So whether or not Hagar was actually treating her with contempt is really outside the fact that the main reason why she felt this way is because she was being emotional. She's a woman. She's a weaker vessel. She felt some type of way that her servant Hagar, the Hamite, the Egyptian slave woman, concubine, could bear her husband Abram's child, but she couldn't. That's really what that was all about. So verse 6, this is how forefather Abraham responded, known as Abram at that time. Abram replied, said, look, she is your servant, so deal with her as you see fit. Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she finally ran away. So Abram responded and asked him, wait, like, listen, man, you willingly gave me your maidservant, all right? Your concubine, your maidservant, which is my concubine, to be a concubine, to bear children. So being that she's your maidservant, hey, man, do what you got to do. You treat her, you deal with her, deal with your maidservant accordingly. And then Sarai proceeded to treat her harshly by way of her emotions. So it says in Genesis 16:7, the angel of the Lord Yahweh by Shemashai found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness along the road to Shur. The angel said to her, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from and where are you going? I'm running away from my mistress, Sarai, she replied. The angel of the Lord Yahweh by Shemashai said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her authority. So the angel of the Lord Yahweh by Shemashai told this Hamite maidservant, Hagar, go back to your overseer, your mistress, Sarai, and be in order. Why? Because in Leviticus 25, around the 43rd verse on down, it confirms that the Israelites were permitted to have servants or slaves of the heathen nations, including our women, be permitted of that luxury. See that? This is why our women also had servants and maid servants of the heathen. So it says Genesis 16:10 NLT. Then he added, I will give you more descendants than you can count. And the angel also said, you are now pregnant and will give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael, which means God Yahweh hears. For the Lord Yahweh has heard your cry of distress. This son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. He will raise his fist against everyone, and everyone will be against him. All right. Yes, he will live in open hostility against all his relatives. Thereafter, Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord, Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, who had spoken to her. She said, you are the power who sees me. She also said, have I truly seen the one who sees me? So that well was named Ber La Hai Roy, which means well of the living one who sees me. It can still be found between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave Abram a son, and Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 60 years old when Ishmael was, excuse me, Slakia. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. So that means Hagar is around that, most likely around that age. Imagine an 86-year-old woman trying to conceive a child now, to have to get pregnant and then conceive a child. First of all, her eggs, are, for the most part, man, women of that age, the eggs of women of the age is just finished, just by way of this wicked Western society. So one more, you know, so you can imagine back then when there was no GMOs and whatnot, and how much of a, and how dire the gravity was of a elderly couple being able to have a child, mainly an elderly woman, because of the current state of her age at the elderly age. So so I just further confirmed there's another account of our forefathers having concubines and bearing children with the concubines. So where is in the scriptures that says that's going to change, man? It says in Malachi 3:6, the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yashai changes not. So we get another quick count in Judges 19. I'll read through this rather quickly because there's a lot of precepts here. This is Judges chapter 19, verses 1 to 30 in the NLT. Going to see account of more of our forefathers having concubines. It says the outline of this, the 19th chapter, Judges says a Levite and his concubine. It says, now in those days Israel had no king. There was a man from the tribe of Levi living in a remote area of the hill country. Try to get this out the way. It says, there was a man from the tribe of Levi living in a remote area of the hill country of Ephraim. One day he brought home a woman from Bethlehem in Judah to be his concubine. We broke down what concubine means. So this woman was a heathen. You can't be an Israelite woman, a daughter of Zion, and be a concubine, man, to an Israelite man. So concubine is a secondary wife. Why? Because she is a wife or paramour of a heathen nation. So it says in Judges 19:2, but she became angry with him and returned to her father's home in Bethlehem after about 4 months. Now, you know how women are, man. So it says she got emotional and left her husband. Her husband, verse 3 says, her husband set out for Bethlehem to speak personally to her and persuade her to come back. He took with him a servant and a pair of donkeys. When he arrived at her father's house, her father saw him and welcomed him. So, so he's like, hey, man, hey, there was a mutual respect there. It says in verse 4, her father urged him to stay a while, so he stayed 3 days, eating, drinking, and sleeping there. It says in verse 5, on the 4th day, the man was up early, ready to leave, but the woman's father said to his son-in-law, have something to eat before you go. So the two men sat down together and had something to eat and drink. Then the woman's father said, the concubine's father said, please stay another night and enjoy yourself. So this concubine's father, took a liking to the Levite brother. He said, no, man, stay, man. Because Jake, the salt to the earth, pursuing that St. Matthew, the 5th chapter. So he was enjoying his company. Verse 7 says in NLT, the man got up to leave, but his father-in-law kept urging him to stay. So he finally gave in and stayed the night. On the morning of the 5th day, he was up early again, ready to leave. And again, the woman's father said, have something to eat, then you can leave later this afternoon. So they had another day of feasting. So he wasn't ready for Jake to leave. Verse 9 says, later, as the man and his concubine and servants were preparing to leave, his father-in-law said, "Look, it's almost evening. Stay and enjoy yourself. Tomorrow you can get up early and be on your way." But this time the man was determined to leave. Like, listen, man, I know you enjoy my company and shit, but I really came to get my wife. Really a concubine, secondary wife from me. Because he knew that he went looking for her and found out that his concubine went to her father's house. Verse 10 of NLT said, "But this time the man was determined to leave, so he took his 2 saddle donkeys and his concubine and headed in the direction of Jebus." That's funny. uh, that is Jerusalem, or Jebus. It says in verse 11, "It was late in the day when they neared Jebus, and the man's servant said to him, 'Let's stop at this Jebusite town and spend the night there.' No, his master said, 'We can't stay in this foreign town where there are no Israelites. Instead, we would go on to Gibeah. Come on, let's try to get as far as Gibeah or Ramah, and we'll spend the night in one of those towns.' So they went on. The sun was settling as they came to Gibeah, a town in the land of Benjamin. So they stopped there to spend the night. They rested in the town square, but no one took them in for the night. That evening, an old man came home from his work in the fields. He was from the hill country of Ephraim, but he was living in Gibeah, where the people were from the tribe of Benjamin. All right. So so it's gonna says when this Levite brother is heading back, after locating, retrieving his concubine from her father's house, they run into this elderly man. So in verse 17, NLT says, when he saw the travelers sitting in the town square, he asked them where they were from and where they were going. "We have been in Bethlehem in Judah," the man replied. "We are on our way to a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim, which is my home. I traveled to Bethlehem and now am returning home. But no one has taken us in for the night." So they didn't, they didn't have, they didn't have like hotels and whatnot back then, So he's just looking for a dwelling place. But Jake was wicked, particularly in that particular area in this particular account. So in verse 19 NLT says, "Even though we have everything we need, we have straw and feed for our donkeys and plenty of bread and wine for ourselves, you are welcome to stay with me," the old man said. "I will give you everything you might need." All right, so he's showing some hospitality. He said, "But whatever you do, don't spend the night in the square." But he warned him. So he took them home with him and fed the donkeys. After they washed their feet, they ate and drank together. While they were enjoying themselves, a crowd of troublemakers from the town surrounded the house. They began beating at the door and shouting to the old man, "Bring out the man who is staying with you." So we, bruh, I didn't want to read this part, but I'm gonna read it. So these troublemakers said, as I quote them, "Bring out the man who is staying with you, so we can have sex with him." You see that, and this is why the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah and those neighboring cities, which are about 5 total cities, man. Okay, because of that sodomy. Okay, which is a sin punishable by death. So you had these wicked ass Benjamites that try to grape this man. Okay, the Levite brother. Judges 19:23 says, "The old man stepped outside to talk to them. 'No, my brothers, don't do such an evil thing, for this man is a guest in my house, and such a thing would be shameful. Here, take my virgin daughter at this man's concubine. I will bring them out to you, and you can abuse them and do whatever you like. But don't do such a shameful thing to this man.' But they wouldn't listen." Verse 25 says, "But they wouldn't listen to him. So the Levite took hold of his concubine and pushed her out the door." So why am I reading this? Because this is a further example in this account in Judges 19th chapter that further confirms that concubines was always an ancient, part of the ancient customs and traditions integrated within the marriage laws in Deuteronomy, the 22nd chapter. So it says, "The men of the town abused her all night, taking turns," see that word there, "graping her until morning. Finally, at dawn, they let it go." Why did they do this? Because they understood that women are spoils of war. That's why the scripture says, "Keep a sure," Sirach 42:11, I believe, says, "Keep a sure watch over your daughter. She brings shame on your name and make you a gazing stock and a laughing stock, man. All right, for being a harlot and so forth. But when if she was to get raped and she didn't have a man, okay, um, then that man that raped her would have to pay her father 50 shekels of silver. Case in point. But I'll get into that later on. But this is verse 26 here. Judges 19:26 NLT. It says at daybreak, the woman returned to the house where her husband was staying. She collapsed at the door of the house and lay there until it was light because she was exhausted, man, after being, G-banged. I'll say it like that because Esau's sensitive algorithm. It says in Judges 19:27, when her husband opened the door to leave, there lay his concubine with her hands on the threshold. So what they did to this woman was wicked. Okay. It says he said, get up, let's go. But there was no answer because she was exhausted. It says, so he put her body on his donkey and took her home. When he got home, he took a knife and cut his concubine's body to 12 pieces. Then he sent one piece to each tribe throughout all the territory of Israel. Everyone who saw it said such a horrible crime has not been committed in all the time since Israel left Egypt. Think about it. What are we going to do? Who's going to speak up? And that's why I believe in the following chapter, it mentions how those wicked Benjamites that committed that act of G-banging that Levi brother's concubine were put to death. Okay, not because they lay with a concubine, because of the act of how to lay with a concubine. Taking turns with a woman is wicked, man. Because first of all, you're exposing your nakedness to other men, which is sodomy. Okay, all right, and then you're defiling a woman. Okay, being that that woman is only supposed to deal with one man. All right, but the point of reading this account was going into how this Levi brother had a concubine. Okay, so men had concubines in the ancient world, man. All right, and they would in Israelite men specifically, and they would continue to in the kingdom of heaven. Let me bring that back out again. Isaiah 14. Let's break it down in blue letter. As I did in the first installment, just to add on to the perspective of the lesson. Okay, dealing with concubines being permissible, and specifically the prophecy of concubines continuing to be permissible in the kingdom of heaven. As Isaiah 14:2 in NLT says, the nations of the world will help the Lord, Yahweh by Shemeshah's people to return, and those who come to live in their land will serve them. Those who capture Israel will themselves be captured, and Israel will rule over its enemies. Now, let's get this in the KJV. Verse 2 says, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place in the house of Israel, shall possess them in the land of the Lord, Yahweh by Shemeshah, for servants and handmaids. Okay, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. This is a future prophecy. Okay, that includes the apprehension, okay, of these, or the seizing of these heathen nations as slaves to the Israelites, including their handmaids. Okay, all right, of their nation. So let's get this word here in the Strongs. It's entry H8198 for handmaids, and it's the Hebrew word shapa, shapa'ah. All right, something along those lines. Shapa'ah. All right, slack if I'm butchering that, but so this word, Hebrew word for a handmaid, all right, means maid servant, slave girl. Okay. So why is it prophesied in Isaiah 14:2 that Israelite men will have slave girls? Because they are concubines for you damn reprobates, man, and you scoffs and you scorners. All right. So now that that's been established, let's go back to let's get Numbers 31 verses 1 to 18 in NLT, going into concubines being permissible through the military, the laws of military service. Okay, it's going to get that. Numbers 31, start from the top in the NLT. Numbers 31 and 1 in NLT. Then the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshah said to Moses, on behalf of the people of Israel, take revenge on the Midianites for leading them into idolatry. After that, you will die and join your ancestors. All right, because Moses had went off, by claiming the glory of Yahweh, Abba Yahweh, Heavenly Father, using Moses to turn that rod into a snake. So it says in verse 3, so Moses said to the people, choose some men and arm them to fight the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai's war of revenge against Midian. From each tribe of Israel, send 1,000 men into battle. Says, so they chose 1,000 men from each tribe of Israel, a total of 12,000 men armed for battle. Then Moses sent them out 1,000 men from each tribe, and Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, led them into battle, which I believe Phinehas, son of Eleazar. They carried along the holy objects of the sanctuary and trumpets for sounding the charge. They attacked Midian as the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai had commanded Moses, and they killed all the men. All 5 of the Midianite kings, Salakia. So it says, all 5 of the Midianite kings, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, died in the battle. It says, they also killed Balaam, son of Beor, with the sword. It says, then the Israelite army captured the Midianite women and children and seized their cattle and flocks and all their wealth as plunder. They burned all the towns and villages where the Midianites had lived. After they had gathered the plunder and captives, both people and animals, they brought them all to Moses and Eleazar the priest and to the whole community of Israel, which was camped on the plains of Moab beside the Jordan River across from Jericho. It says Moses, Eleazar the priest, and all the leaders of the community went to meet them outside the camp. Verse 14 in the NLT says, but Moses was furious with all the generals and captains who had returned from the battle. Verse 15 says, why have you let all the women live? He demanded. These are the very sons who followed Balaam's advice and caused the people of Israel to rebel against the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai at Mount Peor. They are the sons who caused a plague to strike the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai's people, which is idolatry. Verse 17 NLT says, so kill all the boys and all the women who have had intercourse with the men, because these Midianite women were sent, from Balaam, to entice the hearts of the men of Israel to have sex with these Midianite women, which were used as temple harlots, to entice the men of Israel to sleep with these temple harlots in reverence to their pagan idols through Baal Peor. So in verse 18, here's a point. Numbers 31 and 18 NLT says, only the young girls who are virgins may live. You may keep them for yourselves. Now he's going off. Moses is going off though, right? According to Bishop Nate, and other clown. This got exposed recently. Okay. For slandering us on something that's always been permissible in the ancient world and will continue to be permissible in the kingdom to come, in the world to come, the world of righteous, everlasting rulership on behalf of Yasharallah. So it says in Numbers 31 and 19 NLT, and all of you who have killed anyone or touched a dead body must stay outside the camp for 7 days. You must purify yourselves and your captives on the 3rd and 7 days. Let me see. Yeah, I'm going to continue to verse 18. Actually, that was it. Yeah, that was a point. Verse 18. Read that again in NLT. Numbers 31 and 18 in NLT says, only the young girls, see, only the young girls who are virgins may live. You may keep them for yourselves, because they were highly impressionable and they could be molded into being serviceable concubines, aka paramours, lovers, which means lovers, as well as surrogate mothers for the children of the Israelite men that would take these young girls and who were virgins, marriageable maidens. I'm gonna get into that momentarily, for the purpose of using them to further extend their families, which was always permissible. So let's go ahead and further expound on that point in getting Isaiah 7 and 14 in NLT. All right, we get that word there for a virgin. This is Isaiah 7:14, going into the prophecy of Yahushua being born from this virgin woman. And the virgin woman is not talking about a woman that hadn't been And in the context of this virgin, the word virgin here in Isaiah 7:14 does not mean a woman that had been penetrated before. So, is gonna go into it. But this is it says, all right then, the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai himself will give you the sign. Look, the virgin will conceive a child, talking about Mary, Yahushai's mother. She will give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel, which means Yahweh is with us. Now, let's look up this word for virgin in Isaiah 7:14. And there's an entry H5959. It's the Hebrew word Ilama. Ilama, and it means young woman, here's a point, of marriageable age. Of marriageable age. Okay. Now, so when we would take these virgins, okay, of these heathen nations, when we go to war with them, while destroying their wicked satanic pagan altars of their pagan idols, and we saw beautiful women of these heathen nations, we were permitted to take them as concubines after slaying their husbands and slaying those those surrounding heathen, okay, within the confinement of the laws of military service. So Salakia. So with that, I'm gonna get 1 Corinthians 7:36 in the KJV. You know what? Let me get it. I'm gonna get it in the KJV first. 1 Corinthians 7:36 says, "But if any man think that he behaveth himself uncomely towards his virgin, a marriageable maiden, if she pass the flower of her age, her menstrual, and need so require, let him do what he will. He sinneth not. He sinneth not. Let them marry." And the word marriage essentially means to join together. You know what I'm saying? We get into in Ephesians, the 5th chapter. Now, as is pointed out, that when a man and a woman becomes one in the flesh through the act of sex, which consummates the marriage, and it had nothing to do, a diamond engagement ring, which originates back to pagan idolatry of sun god worship, which I brought out in the first installment. Because you have this guy, Bishop Nate, that is so adamant about the modern day marriages to be integrated within this Israelite thing of ours, and that's mixing the affairs of this life with ancient traditions and customs of our Hebrew Israelite heritage, man. And that's an offense that you're guilty of, man. That's why you're being called out. You're and your false doctrines are being destroyed. Okay, so because we through this lesson, the first and second installment, which has been further confirmed, on behalf of other lessons that came before this, on behalf of the apostles and elder bishops on down, has further confirmed what the true biblical concept of marriage means. It has nothing to do with no goddamn diamond engagement ring or getting down on the ring and worshiping and reverencing a woman, which is more idolatry of Semiramis, Queen of Heaven worship, okay, and so forth. It just simply means to have sex with your woman, man. You're a virgin, okay? Case in point. So, so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and bring out this article. All right, this is on gotquestions.org. It says, does the Bible say what is the proper age for marriage? So the Bible does not specify any particular age requirement for a person to be married. Rather, it speaks in general terms of marriage being for those who are grown up. What constitutes a grown up? Puberty. It's very simple, man. It says, both the language and culture of the Bible strongly support the idea that puberty, at bare minimum, is a condition that must be met before becoming someone's spouse. Let's prove that in Galatians, the 4th chapter. Okay, let's prove that real quick. Galatians, the 4th chapter. Galatians 4, and start from the top in the KJV, says, now I say that the heir, as long as he is a child, differeth nothing from a servant, though he be Lord of all. So the Israelite, men, specifically Israelite men that had young boys that were raised, young sons, to be raised up as men. They were considered children. Excuse me. They were children that were considered servants, as it says here. As long as they were children, they differed not from a servant, because before puberty, the children were servants, slaves, okay, servants to their parents, man. That's why fathers that will betroth their daughters to young boys that are, up and coming men of their choosing were angry. Um, when some nigga would come along, for example, and would just and just grape his daughter um, because that Israelite men, the father that had his betrothed daughter raped by this random Jake, understood that Jake that raped his daughter was taking another servant from his household, man. That's further why that the Jake, or the Jake that was found uh, raping the daughter of the father of that woman, had to pay that father his 50 shekels of silver, because everything was dealt righteously in a masculine manner. It wasn't dealt emotionally, man. Otherwise, I'm gonna get into that later in Deuteronomy 22. Otherwise, the Israelite father, would go on an emotional tirade and put that nigga to death, or to put that man to death for raping a child, raping his daughter. But according to Brother Polite, who is now Sister Polite, in a pen, for falling on his own sword, falling on a stone that he said that through slander against us, okay, like calling us rapists or little girls or whatnot, is of an allegation, a false accusation, okay, of a practice that was always permissible in terms of um, the laws of marriage, including dealing with virgins, marriageable maidens, once they reach the flower of their age and menstrual cycle, and typically that takes place anywhere between 11 to 12 years old. Then you have this other clown. I don't like to say his name because he's been exposed recently, but this clown was on his high horse a few days ago saying how, oh well, supposedly the apostles and elder, bishops and other leadership, extended leadership of Great Millstone are rapists, and put a black stain on a body of Israel because they're advocating the teachings of forcibly, according to him, going inside of little girls. We want, when if that was done through a virgin, a marriageable maiden, a female of age, a woman of age, okay, that there was laws in place for handling those incidents. Now, going around raping women, to obtain wives was not a part of the traditional customs of obtaining a wife, but it happened. And when it happened, there were laws in place to handle that situation accordingly. But you have a weak, emotional-minded niggas, beta male, feminine, Queen of Heaven, Semiramis worshippers that have a problem with that. So they slander. And look what happened to the recent nigga that just slandered us about that. He got Slakia. He got exposed for being a sexual deviant. Okay, allegedly. Even though there's receipts out there, I'll still say allegedly. I have the receipts. But I'll still say allegedly. He got exposed. He got exposed, man, for essentially being exposed for the same thing he accused us of being, which is a sexual deviant. Which, according to the laws and ancient tradition and customs of the Israelites, it was never a wicked thing to deal with a marriageable maiden, no matter how young she was, as long as she was of a marriageable age. Hence the word ilama for virgin, Isaiah 7:14. But is it expedient to further rehearse the marriage laws in its entirety in this wicked, effeminate Western beast empire? Of course not. That's why the apostles put a decree out. If you are caught dealing with a so-called what's perceived to be an underage girl, in this society, you out of there, man. Okay, because it's not the time for that. But doesn't mean not teach it because what because this is appease the feelings of faithless reprobates. Of course not, man. We're gonna continue to teach what is written and rehearse the righteous laws, such commandments, and ancient traditions and customs of our heritage, and to the best of our ability. Okay, and if it's not expedient to keep and to rehearse everything, then that's when we exercise wisdom, man. It's very simple, man. All right. But anyway, what is being established here is that children are servants to their parents before they reach puberty. When they reach puberty, now they're permissible to marry, extend their family and bear children. Galatians 4:1 says, "Now say that the heir, as long as he is a child, differeth nothing from a servant, though he be Lord of all." Verse 2 says, "But is under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the father." So, meaning for to go and expand on the point that young children before puberty were to seek tutelage, counsel from said tutors and governors of the leadership of Israel. Okay, until they become of age. So I just wanted to expand on that real quick. Now going back to this information on GodQuestion.org, it says, "Does the Bible say what is a proper age for marriage?" Let's jump down to the point. Says for females, Na'ara means a marriageable woman. We just really broke down what a marriageable maiden is, which is Ilama. It says, and this is not what I wanted. Let me see. Let me see. Let me go ahead and find it. Salakia. I'm going to sort through this information until I find what I'm looking for. Yep. It says it is reasonable to look at the practices of ancient, it says Judaism, and it's not, and they're ignorantly thinking about Amalek. And Amalek has nothing to do with our ancient Hebrews like customs and traditions, even though, Amalek, the chief family of the Edomites are also Hebrews, is not referring to them because the marriage laws only pertain to the Israelites. It says it is reasonable to look at the practices of ancient Judaism for cultural considerations on a proper age for marriage. According to tradition, boys were not considered men and therefore not marriageable until the age of 13. It's really 12. Okay, because when Prophetic confirms that is when that account where it speaks about how it says so many words. Yahushua became a man around the Passover. When his parents were looking for him when they lost him. Because when he turned 12 on the Passover. So it says girls were not considered women until age 12. Come on, man. These ages more or less correspond to the onset of puberty. That's what Apostle Paul is pointing out in 1 Corinthians 7:36, and what constitutes a female being transitioning to a woman and becoming a woman through the flower of her age, her menstrual cycle, through puberty. It says because that's when her body biologically permits her to bear children. And when a female can bear children, that constitutes her womanhood. It says, while those ages might seem too young to us, they are not unusual ages for getting married. Man, it says historically, it has only been within the last century or so that the average age of getting married has drifted into the late 20s and early 30s, really 18, according to Esau. But where's that in scriptures, man? For to confirm this devil's a goddamn hypocrite, in regards to his phrase, "In God we trust." Because it's not talking about the Most High God, Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's talking about his God of this world, Shatan. That's who Esau worships. Okay? This is why his satanic council and these bylaws and more decrees and policies set up are directly contrary to the righteous instruction of the Lord Yahweh by Shem Shai's ancient traditions and customs and laws, statutes, commandments of intended for his people, the Israelites. Okay, so I just want to establish that real quick. Now, let's get Ephesians 5, and I'll run through that rather briefly. Ephesians 5 and let me see, 22, I believe. It says, wives, submit yourselves unto your husbands, as unto the Lord, Yahweh by Shemer Shai. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Hamashiach is the head of the church, and he is the savior of the body. All right. We're going to further, establishing the old ancient concept of that patriarchy. It says, therefore, as the church is subject unto Hamashiach, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. This is further why our Israelite women knew that it wasn't wicked to allow their handmaids, their female servants of the heathen nations, to be used as secondary wives and surrogate mothers to further extend their families of their Israelite husbands. They understood that wasn't wicked. It's never going to be wicked. Okay. This is Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives, even as Hamashiach also loved the church and gave himself for it. Verse 26 says that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word. Jump down to the point. Let me see. Verse 28, the point is verse 31. It says, so ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. See that? Why? Because they're intertwined. They become one flesh through sex, the consummation of marriage. It says, he that loveth his wife loveth himself. Okay? And that's why you're not supposed to abuse your wives, and you know what I'm saying, and so forth. Because she's an extension of you and your family. It says Ephesians 5:29, for no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth it, even as the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshah the church. Verse 30, for we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. Because we're married to the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshah through the first holy covenant. Now here's the point in verse 31. It says, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother. Okay, when he becomes of age, as Apostle Paul pointed out in Galatians 4 chapter. It says, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. Okay, when they're both of marriageable age through puberty, they're now permitted according to the marriage laws to come together and bear children, man. See? It's very simple. If you have the eye salve to search the scriptures for this edification. So Salakia. So now with that, now that's been established, let's go ahead and segue over to Deuteronomy 21. All right, let's grab that real quick. Deuteronomy 21, and let me see. I'm gonna read. I'm start at verse 10 and read down to verse 13. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 21 and verse 10 in the KJV. It says, when thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshah thy power had delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive. So this chapter is further going into the laws of military service. When an Israelite man is able to go out there and go to war at the age of 20 and so forth. So verse 11 says, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and has a desire into her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife. So, our forefather Moses pointed out during the confinement of the law, the laws of military service, when we're going to war with these heathen nations, and destroying their wicked pagan altars of idolatry in them, okay, as well, okay, for being heathen and being idolaters, and we would see, beautiful women in the midst of them. Moses is going to further go into what was permissible. It says, verse 12 says, then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails. Meaning what? You can apprehend her after ensuring that her husband was slain of her nation. Okay, meaning ensuring that she was not committed to a man. Okay? Case in point. This was permissible during the laws of military service when we were sent out to war. Now, when King David did this, he he was slick because he did this against the Israelite man, okay, by putting him on the front line and having him lined up to be put to death so he could take his wife. That was wicked, okay. Now, the Heavenly Father Yahweh forgave him for that, but in the case of indulging in this act towards within the confinement of military laws of service against the heathen, it was always permissible to slay these heathen nations. And when we see beautiful women, okay, we inquire that they were they were not tied to a man, okay. Otherwise, that would be adultery. Okay, then we would take them, and as it says here, verse 12, then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails. Verse 13 says, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thy house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that, thou shalt go into her. I mean, what? Then we would be permitted to penetrate her. You know, when the Israelite men, would apprehend a beautiful woman of a heathen nation during the act of war, he would take her home, have her shave her head, and have her mourn for a month. That was mercy. Esau didn't give us that mercy in slavery. He would grape our women right in front of us, our children right in front of us, which not only was adultery, because the Israelite men were still alive, and he in the laws of military service didn't apply to this damn devil because he's a heathen. Okay. Then on top of that, he would commit sodomy, and an extension of sodomy, okay, of fornication through the whole pedo situation by having his way with our children. You see, but we went toward these nations, hey, when we would put them to death, and we see beautiful women, we just take them. You see, so this is the laws of military service, which are laws of the Heavenly Father. But see, this further exposes the hypocrisy of Bishop Nate, because and you other wayward camps, mainly you t-shirt wearing camps that are so adamant about the law, statutes, commandments. What about this law? How it's permissible in this law to take concubines of heathen nations during war. Yeah, according to Bishop Nate, he said that was wicked. Let's rewind that.
Forced. But what some of these Israelite leaders are doing is saying, we're not going to teach that. So you have all other races, Arabs, white folks who are oppressed, are sitting there amongst them. Then you got groups that teach about concubines.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna have sex with white women. Yeah, give me that in Jeremiah 30:16. I'm like, so you're gonna have in the kingdom, you having sex with white women and kick the black woman to the curb? Are you kidding me? Read that.
Yeah, so what he's doing right there is I point out in the first installment of this lesson, he's pandering to the emotions of the nigger woman. These weak ass, effeminate Israelite men that never put off the ways of the world under the shadow of Egypt, modern day Egypt, as in America, Babylon the Great. And it's further using sensationalism to trigger their emotions because so they can continue to pay him tithes, man, and continue to support his wickedness. Because IU through C believes in strength in numbers, man. They believe in quantity over quality. This is what this shit is all about. This is what his accusation is all about, man. His false accusations that, we're wicked because we're teaching about the concubines in the present day world, in the ancient world and in the world to come, as it was further substantiated in that prophecy in Isaiah 14:2, how we're going to take these nations as captives and their handmaids. And we just broke down that word handmaid as in slave girl, a concubine, a paramour, a secondary wife. Come on, man. So now you're not defending the gospel with that statement. So this is all right. So I digress. We'll go back to Deuteronomy 21:13 from the top. It says, matter of fact, let me read it from the top, verse 10. Salakia. Deuteronomy 21:10. Says, when thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and the Lord Yahweh by Shem Shah, thy power, had delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive. Says, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman. And let me speak on this real quick. Not only were we permitted to take these heathen nations captives in ancient world, but we're going to take them captives in this world. What further confirms that? The book of Daniel, which says the saints shall take the kingdom. What do you think that means, man? Yahweh Shemashah is going to use the house of David, okay, to further wage war on Esau, Edom, and these heathen nations. That's the glory he's going to give his elect, his precious elect, the apple of his eye, the house of David. Because the house of David were always mighty warriors. How's that going to be even the exception in this time to come, where Yahweh Shemashah, pursuing Isaiah 41:15, is going to use the house of David, the 144,000 elect governing body of the 1/3, okay, as a sharp threshing instrument, okay, against these heathen nations, man. In the midst of that, in the midst of the house of David being used for that purpose, they're going to carry that ancient tradition of what makes them Israelites in terms of exacting vengeance on these heathen nations, man. Okay, applying the laws of military service. Okay, which does not exclude taking the concubines of these heathen nations, man, especially the Edomites. So you goddamn right, we're gonna have some Karens and some Beckys and so forth in the kingdom, man. Because it's prophesied, pursuing Isaiah 14:2. If you have a problem with that, you have a problem with Yahweh by Shem Yashai. This is Deuteronomy 21:11. It says, "And seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and has a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife." It says in verse 12, "Then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails." Verse 13 says, "And she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thine house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that, thou shalt go into her, penetrate her, and be her husband." Because once again, sex consummates the marriage. And when when a man and a woman becomes a man and wife, one flesh, as it said in Ephesians 5:31, it says, "And after that, thou shalt go into her and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife." That secondary wife is pointed out here in this information, okay, of concubines. The term concubine, the biblical concept of concubine, man. So with that, we'll go ahead and continue. Got a few more precepts. And get Genesis 24. Let's get that account real quick. Genesis 24, start at verse 62. Genesis 24 and 62. It says, "And Isaac came from the way of the well, Lahai Roy, for he dwelt in the south country." Says, "And Isaac went out to meditate in the field at the eventide, and he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, the camels were coming." Says, "And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she lighted off the camel," because women were more in order back then. They knew to treat a man with reverence and not look him in the eyes and so forth. Verse 65 says, "For she has said unto the servant, What man is this that walketh in the field to meet us? And the servant has said, It is my master." So she's asking our forefather Isaac's servant, who is it? Who is that guy? Because she was attracted to him. She felt she was drawn to him. So it says, "And the servant has said, It is my master." Therefore she took a veil and covered herself. That's part of her humbling herself before our forefather Isaac. It says, "And the servant told Isaac all things that he had done." So he enlightened our forefather Isaac of the conversation and told him that this woman desired him. It says here in verse 67, "And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent and took Rebekah, and she became his wife." Did it say that he got down on on one knee and proposed to her with a diamond engagement ring? No, that was a wicked practice that Ham was into, that Esau adopted during the pagan Greco-Roman Empire. It says, "And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death." What does it mean he loved her? He made love to her. He penetrated her, man. Let's get this in an NLT. Okay. Genesis 24 and 67 in NLT. Salakia, let me get that. Salakia. All right. Get this in NLT. Dang, Salakia, man. Salakia. All right, here we go. Genesis 24, 67 NLT. And Isaac brought Rebekah into his mother Sarah's tent, and she became his wife. He loved her deeply, and she was a special comfort to him after the death of his mother. What is the essence of that comfort? What does this manner of comfort mentioned in this precept entail? The comfort through the pleasure of sleep that is mentioned in Wisdom of Solomon 7th chapter. Let's get that real quick. What is the pleasure of sleep? Sex. Wisdom of Solomon 7. Salakia. Says Wisdom of Solomon 7. Start from the top. It says, I myself also am a mortal man, like to all, and the offspring of him that was first made of the earth. And in my mother's womb was fashioned to be flesh in a time of 10 months, being compacted in blood of the seed of man, and the pleasure that came with sleep. So the seed of man is composed in the womb of his said mother through the pleasure that came with sleep, sex. Okay. And when I was born, I drew in the common air and fell upon the earth, which is of like nature, and the first voice which I uttered was crying as all others do. See? I was nursed in swaddling clothes, and that with cares. For here's the point of verse 5. For there is no king that had any other beginning of birth, meaning what? There is no other king that existed by way of any other manner, all right, or any other beginning of birth outside of the act of how they were to exist in the first place through the act of sex, man. That's how people have children. You see that? And that was always done. That was always further done through the concubines, the surrogate mothers of our forefathers. And it's going to continue. This is prophesied in Isaiah 14:2. So, all right, so now that's been established. Let's continue. So our forefather Isaac took Rebekah, and he took her. He seized her. And he became her husband by loving her, making love to her, penetrating her, and consummating that marriage. So now let's get the laws of marriage real quick. Deuteronomy 22, start at verse 13, read all the way down to the end of the chapter. All right. Deuteronomy 22 and 13 says, if any man take a wife and go in into her, why does this keep coming up, man? Because it is further establishing the biblical concept of marriage. Okay. If any man take a wife and go in unto her and hate her, and give occasions of speech against her, and bring up an evil name upon her, and say, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I found her not a maid. So basically, this is going into, when you have a wicked Israelite man that's really acting like a nigga, not holding himself accountable for taking this woman, because this is mainly Israelite woman in this case, by way of the marriage laws pertaining to us, and taking this woman, okay, penetrating her, okay, taking her virginity, so to say, and becoming her husband, and then acting like he didn't find her a virgin, a marriageable maiden, okay, hence the term alama, then this is how he be dealt with. Deuteronomy 22:15 says, then shall the father of the damsel and her mother take and bring forth the tokens of the damsel's virginity into the elders of the city in the gate. Now it's that bloody cloth, okay, where it's like it showed, it confirmed the daughter, lost her virginity to this man, okay, by having her hymen cut. That's what the word sex means, to cut. That's why sex consummates the marriage, and this is why this the token of the damsel's virginity was that cloth, that bloody cloth, to confirm that their daughter's hymen had been cut. Hence the term sex. So it says, then shall the father of the damsel and her mother take and bring forth the tokens of the damsel's virginity and to the elders of the city in the gate. Says, and the damsel's father shall say unto the elders, I gave my daughter into this man to wife. He betrothed her. He betrothed her to this man, and he hated her. It says, and lo, he had given occasions of speech against her, basically word of mouth. It says, saying, I found not thy daughter a maid. So basically, this wicked, Jake would say, guilty of this offense, will find this. He would, to try to alleviate his duty, his self from the duties and responsibilities of caring for this woman, this Israelite woman that he took the virginity of. He would claim that she was a harlot when he met her. So it says, and lo, he had given occasions of speech against her, saying, I found not thy daughter a maid, and yet these are the tokens of my daughter's virginity, and they shall spread the cloth before the elders of the city. It says, and the elders of that city shall take that man and chastise him, bring punishments upon him, deal with him accordingly. It says in verse 19, and they shall immerse him in 100 shekels of silver, and give them unto the father of the damsel. Right. So, all right, because he had brought up an evil name upon a virgin of Israel, and she shall be his wife. He may not put her away all his days. So they were reinforced that he would have to take care of her. Okay, as long as they were able to bring forth the token of her virginity to prove that she lost her virginity to that man. So, verse 20 says, but if this thing be true, and the tokens of virginity be not found of the damsel, then they shall bring out the damsel to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her with stones that she die, because she had wrought folly in Israel to play the whore in her father's house. So shalt thou put evil from among you. I believe it says in Leviticus 19:29, do not prostitute thy daughter to be a whore. And how a man should not be a man of Israel should not be a sodomite. That's a part of black culture. Okay, all right. We need what? Death culture. All right. That is further, part of the covenant with death that our people made, okay, that has made us to be perceived as degenerates before the Lord. It's all part of the curses ultimately. But it says, verse 21 from the top, then they shall bring out the damsel to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her with stones that she die, because she had wrought folly in Israel to play the whore in her father's house. So shall thou put evil away from among you. It says in verse 22, if a man be found lying with a woman married to an husband, then they shall both of them die, both the man that lay with the woman and a woman. So shall thou put evil away evil from Israel. Okay, so there's a married woman, okay, that was found laying with another man that wasn't her husband. They would both be put to death for adultery, including her for not crying out, because if she didn't cry out, that means she enjoyed it. Okay. So this is verse 23. It says, if a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto an husband, and a man find her in the city and lie with her, then ye shall bring them both out into the gate of that city, and ye shall stone them with stones that they die, that they die. The damsel, because she cried not, as I was mentioning, being in the city, and the man, because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife. So thou shalt put away evil from among you. And this is another reason why, our biological scepters are referred to as rods, through the spirit. For example, when he speaks about, giving the child the rod of correction, it is talking about, bringing punishments upon them. Okay, the modern day way of bringing the rod upon a child, the rod of correction upon a child, through a belt, a switch. You know what I'm saying? And that's how they, at least that's how they do it down south, with a switch, extension cords in some cases, a shoe, whatever the case. But when you give a woman a rod of correction, you're doing so through your actual rod, your biological scepter. You're humbling her. Hence the concept of humbling her. So when a man humbles another man's wife, he has committed adultery. He should be put to death. Okay, especially if he didn't inquire if that woman had a husband. So it says in verse 25, but if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and a man force her, okay, and lie with her, then the man only that lay with her shall die. Verse 26 says, but unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in a damsel no sin worthy of death, for as when a man riseth against his neighbor and slayeth him, even so is this matter. All right. Verse 27. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. Reminds me of that account, I believe was it Esther or Esther or Judith, where she was married. You had some wicked niggas that try to commit adultery with her, man, and they got judged by the confinement of the laws of marriage, trying to lay with a married woman. So it says in verse 28, if a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, and lay hold on her and lie with her, and they be found, says, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. Okay, because then she'd be traumatized, man. You know, and then because then you put her away. Now you're causing her to play the harlot. Okay, so that's why marriage is a very serious thing, man. So when you accuse us of being rapists and all this other madness, you're going off, man, because you're slandering. You're guilty of the law of not slandering your brothers. It says in Deuteronomy 23:1. Salakia, Exodus 23:1. Salakia. It's just Deuteronomy 22:30. It says, "A man shall not take his father's wife, nor discover his father's skirt." And that's what Reuben was guilty of. So committing adultery with his father Jacob's concubine. So yeah, so this is Jeremiah 6 and 16. Salakia. Jeremiah 6 and 16. And it reads, thus saith the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where is a good way, and walk therein. It says in 1 John, what's that? 1 John, it says the laws, 1 John 5 and 3, how love is keeping the laws, statutes, commandments, and how the law is not grievous, roughly paraphrasing. So including the laws of marriage, okay? Permitting a man to lie down with a marriageable maiden, okay, penetrate and have children with her, as long as she didn't have a husband, and she's of a marriageable age, he did no wrong. Let them marry. He sins not, as the Apostle Paul pointed out in 1 Corinthians 7:36. So why wouldn't you teach that if it's written in the law? See, it says, thus said the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where is a good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein. You see, it says verse 17, also I set watchmen over you, saying, hearken to the sound of the trumpet. But they said, we will not hearken. Right now, we're sounding the particular sound of this trumpet, is this proverbial ram's horn of war. The impending danger getting ready to be unleashed upon the wicked of our people, man. And being that, we don't know if we're of the elect. That's why we're making our calling election sure out of fear. Especially, hey, man, because we're running Passover time, man. Where a lot of Jakes fall out, man. Just like, Judas Iscariot, okay? Being exposed for being a faithless reprobate and a traitor. There's a that judgment, or that manner of judgment around this time, or that judgment around this time of the year, especially around this time of the year, is not any less dire, especially for the times we're living in. This is Jeremiah 6 and 18. It says, therefore hear ye nations, and know, O congregation, what is among them. It says, hear, O earth, behold, I will bring evil upon this people, even the fruit of their thoughts, because they have not hearkened unto my words, nor to my law, but rejected it. Bishop Nate just did what he did in this interview. Okay, rejecting the laws of marriage and the laws of military service, in terms of concubines always being integrated, okay, within both laws of the laws of marriage and the laws of military service, is rejecting the words of the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai. Okay, when you do so by looking at add and remove from the scriptures, the penalty is having your name removed from the book of life. It says in Revelation 22nd chapter, man. Okay, so repent or be destroyed. So that was the point. Right, Salakia, for the length, but Adam Ratazah, this is further edifying his order to elect. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end it off on that note. All right, praise less was further edifying his order to elect. I'm going to Michelle Wam to the brother Damawathia. Brother put Amos 9:11 says, "In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen and close up the breaches thereof, and I'll raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old." So how's the ruins of the house of David going to be further built it up? Okay, through replenishing the seed of the house of David, through the seed of the men of the house of David, into women to further produce children. Okay, to further replenish the earth, as the Heavenly Father commanded our forefather Jacob in Genesis 35:11, and our forefather Noah in Genesis 9:1, after the Heavenly Father Yahweh brought judgment, okay, through the element of water amongst everyone outside of 8 souls. So that's further how. So okay, that's how the tabernacle of David is going to be further raised up from their ruin. Okay, so I'm going to end it off on a note. All right, and once again, pray to us for edifying his order to the elect, and give all praise and glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who is the God of the living, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Barach, Rash. With that, blah, blah, blah. See you very soon. Shalom, Labachayim, Shabbat, Yashad Abadah, Shai Yasharala, meaning peace to the elect of the house of David, of the nation of Israel. All right, and on to the next one.